I look at the growth that's occurring in Isagenix at the moment, and man, I love this graph. Truly, I put it up every talk. Right? This is what's going on. And at the moment, we just had to add to it, because according to Angus, it's going to be closer to 700 million turnover this year. This is what's going on. And that's exciting. Right, here in Australia, talking to Paul and Suzanne, our upline. And this is a couple of months ago now, but I said to him, mate, you see, what happened after celebration this year? I said to him, mate, I'm a bit confused the way they run it. I said, just how many people were there at 5-star and above? He said, I don't know. Anyway, goes through, writes it out. There were 13 new ones last year. That was 13 new people making $250,000 or more a year. In the game that I'd been involved with, if we had one, I'd just about fly in a helicopter. Here, they're lucky to give their name, rank and serial number. You know what I mean? It's like routine. See, when I checked with Paul a couple of months ago, he said now over 40 associates over the 400,000 a year bracket. Here in Australia. Unheard of. Right, and we've now got, well, 120 or plus millionaires now, but the three of them are here in Australia, David and Irene, right, Paul and Suzanne, Jen and Jono. Right, that's pretty exciting. Right, and the number of people that are maxed out, again, we can't keep up now. Trying to count them. That's where they got the 8 stars, the 250 cycles. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. When you go through and you work it out, it's like over $700,000 a year. Now, I don't know about you, but to me that's a lot of money. You with me? This bit here, some in less than 12 months. You know what I mean? It depends where you're coming from. I mean, looking at this, when these guys up in Queensland have just done it in under 12 months, in the end I'm looking at it and I'm saying, Trevor, at a core belief level, at a subconscious level, would you really believe that it is possible for anybody with no networking experience, no team to bring in, right? They didn't bring in a big team. They had no networking experience. To get into any network and put enough people in there to be making over $700,000 a year at that rate within 12 months. My core belief, with everything I've seen and the fact that we've been in the top 3 in a couple of different companies, 3 different companies, I would have to say no way. But these guys have just done it. You with me? They have done it. And it's so exciting. Now, what they're talking about is the fact that if you go into your back office, it talks about the Brisbane Isagenix next weekend will be the biggest Isagenix ever in Australia. And that's exciting. They've got well over 1,500 people going. But the reason I'm going, and I was at Isagenix here a couple of months back, but the reason I've decided to go up there is I've got to meet these guys. I've got to see everybody going across stage. Because I promise you, never before have they had so many people going across stage making so much money on any networking platform, any networking stage ever before in Australia. I mean, we've had some pretty big functions. That group I was with to start with, in the end, we had 30,000 people front up at functions between here and Melbourne over 2 weekends. Put it into perspective, first function I went to was about this size, 600. But we ended up with a tennis centre full. There was Olympic Park over the road full, and we had Festival Hall full. The speakers had to speak 3 times that weekend. Following weekend, we'd fly into Brisbane, we'd fill 2 venues up there. Then we'd go to New Zealand and have 7,000 or 8,000 there. All coming out of the original 32, actually, that were a meeting in Melbourne in 1983. And see, it is unbelievable what's going on out there. But never before, and we'd have big, parades and all that sort of stuff, we were part of it. But I promise you, nowhere near the money is being made. back then to what's been made here. I mean, one of the reasons for that, you've got to look at it and say, okay, well, how come they had more people, even more product going through at the moment, but they weren't making as much money? Because we've got a very generous compensation plan. See, there's a difference. How much they pay out and how much they keep. The network marketing companies, you with me? And see, when I looked at our Isagenix, now the reason I got in was for the product B. But when I got in, and when I looked at it, what I saw was that Isagenix pay out 50% of the BV. And that's normal. A lot of networking companies do that. But what they don't do is pay out all this other money. See, most of this other stuff has all been added since Isagenix started. A lot of these bonuses have actually come in since we've been involved, the last 3 years. They weren't there when we first got in. I mean, I'm sitting back there, watch the, you know, the U plus 2, the M plus 2, all those figures on the board, the $820. The one figure that they didn't also put in there was the fact that, once you put it up later on, but the fact that you've already done, you know, a couple of cycles. Extra $108. Well, originally you would have had the same amount of product going through for $108. You with me? That's what's going on. I mean, the other thing that happens, one of the questions is how come it's not even split? I promise you, in a network, you will always have somebody get into one of your legs and just mess it up. Go ballistic. You know what I mean? It just happens. And so when that happens, if you had a 450 split, then what happens? You'd be paid on the minimum of the 450. As it is now, we get paid an extra cycle for every 300. So when you do have that lead go ballistic, right, you actually make 50% more than a lot of the other networks out there, binaries, that have an even split. That's just what happens. That's why they've got it that way. I promise you, Jim and Kathy, when they talk about the fact that we want to do what's best for the distributors, what's best for the associates, they mean it. That's just a fact. You know what I mean? I mean, all this money, they're talking about the front end of the plan. You know where that money's coming from? It would have otherwise been corporate profit. You know, it's the same when they had this holiday bonus last year, the year before, whenever it was, right? This one here, well, for us, it was like $4,000. It's going to be the same again this year. Well, that's very handy in December, first week. Makes for a better Christmas, trust me. But lump sums like that, you can plan to do stuff with that, you know what I mean? I mean, just little things, but, you know, they've just increased the, the executive pool money. And a lot of you, they go, you know, okay, big deal, right? But it's an extra $250,000 going to distributors here in Australia. That's what it is in the next 6 months. Just going from 60,000 to 100,000 out of corporate profit. See, I promise you, this is the thing here. These are the abnormal bits. This is why it's exploding like nothing else ever has. Right, I mean, on the call, those of us who were on the call the other day, Angus Love, when we were talking about, you know, those of us who won the trip to New Zealand, right? He talked about last week they had 3,700 join. When he was here a couple of months ago, he was talking about 2,000 a week. True?
Yeah.
What do you think it's doing, guys? I mean, it's already been said this morning that these days everybody's getting to know about it. That's true. That's what's happening. Right? That same week they did over $4 million in sales. Do you know what that means? We're now probably the biggest MLM in Australia, period. I mean, it's mind-blowing. That's just what happened. Avon's only doing $130 million a year, apparently. The Big A is back down to $70 million a year. right? We're doing up around the 200 by the time we get a full year going at this, right? Awesome. Australia in July was up 500% on last year, 500%. I look at this thing and I say, man, it's still going. What if we get another 500% this year? That'll mean by July next year we're doing 25 times as much as we were doing in July last year. See guys, this is not a wave we're on. This is a tsunami. Now, this is just putting it in perspective. This is what's happening. If you look at this graph here, if we project this out, this is where we're at here at the moment. That is the equivalent of 200 million a year, right? 4 million a week. 5 times where we were last year. I love those sort of graphs. I mean, how many people, I mean, sure, this is supposed to be figures, but this is a graph, this is pictures. How many people can see a trend there? I promise you, putting all this together in the last couple of days, I got so excited. I mean, you look at these. I mean, it doesn't matter how you measure it, right? This is the direct selling news, right? And they're talking about the global 100, right? So in 2012 we were 44, 2013 36, and now we're up to 29. And if I look at those figures and say, okay, what happens when we get to the 700 million a year? We'll probably be in the teens. Their goal is to be global totally. And the reason I've got the 100 countries in there, because there's other networks out there that have been going a lot longer, they're already in 100 countries. Oh, Amway, see this one here, and I use this one because this is number one. This is number one in terms of turnover. And see, if this is Amway, started way back in 1959, right? Now, it took them a long while to get to the first billion. Last year they did 11.8 billion. I think it means more when you put 11,800 million. How many people that makes more sense to? I mean, what's a billion, right? But 11,800 million? And see, we look at that and then we compare it with Isagenix. Look down the bottom here, guys.
Halfway there. On the way up.
That's where we are. Down here, right? Can't get to that one. But I honestly believe, because we've got a much better compensation plan, we've got an unbelievable product, we've got an unbelievable company, support staff, everything else, just their whole attitude of looking after the distributors, we're going to be way up here. And up here. And up here. No. I mean, there's lots of little things that make a difference. See, in this one here, if you internationally sponsored someone, you didn't get anything until they got to a certain leadership level. Then you only got half as much as if it was your neighbour at home. With this one, you introduce someone to Vietnam next week, man, no different if they were in your own country. They were your neighbours. I mean, if you look at it, you've got to understand, back in 1959, there were no computers.
That's right.
Seriously. The way they had to calculate the bonuses back then was on a bit of butcher's paper. And to be honest with you, with this plan, all I've ever done in the last 55 years is computerise the butcher's paper. But that's a problem. What I'm excited about is their growth last year was $500 million. That was just their growth. They're still growing. They're still opening in new countries this year. See, I look at that and I know I've got the utmost belief in Jim and Kathy, the whole team there, and I know where they're going and where we're going to end up. It's going to be huge, guys. It really is only just getting started. Growth of your business, exponential growth, so important to understand this. Because see, what happens, as time goes on, it gets faster. All right, look at this. Here, basically we had product B introduced, Isagenix. And then along here, they came out with the President's Pack, the double PIBs. Bang, the whole thing's just exploding. Basically what we got is that exponential curve, and it's just going to keep going up, right? Now, if you don't clearly understand this, though, don't understand the numbers and the exponential growth, you could actually be on track to achieve massive success but not know it. get depressed and then stop building the business. Finally quit because they don't understand it. And basically the factors affecting the growth in your organisation are three. Right, you've got the average number of presentations done per month per active associate. You've got the sponsoring rate, that is the percentage that become associates. Right, you've got your activation rate, which is a percentage of associates that share Isagenix with others. Right, that's it. Let's just have a look at the spreadsheet. Okay, can we see this?
Yep.
So what we got here, right, the first one is the average number of presentations being done per month. Next one's the percentage of people getting in, 1 in 4. Next one's activation rate, 90% we were talking about before, doing nothing, 10% active, right? So what happens here, if you were doing 10 presentations a month, only 1 in 4 were getting in, 10% of your group were becoming active, after 3 months, right, you'd have 11 people in your organisation. After 12 months, it'd be 137. And after 24 months, you've got the 2,109. Okay, now the problem is, look at this. I'll tell you one of the things that happens. Sometimes people go out and do a 90-day game plan. They've got 15 people in their group. But they're hearing about all these other amazing success stories. And they're thinking, man, this is obviously not working for me. In actual fact, they're already ahead of the curve. They just got to keep going. They just got to keep going. And see, what's so amazing here is, just suppose we put in 12. We see what happens, okay? For example, you're doing a 90-day game plan. What happens if you increase your activity rate? Keep an eye on this figure down here, okay? Goes from... Does that make a difference or not?
Yep.
You with me? Just suppose, I mean, some of these guys out there, I mean, they're getting excited. These figures are per month. Some of them are doing it per week. But even if we went to 15 a month, you with me? Then look what happens. You want to know how come people are growing so fast? I promise you, they're sharing it with a lot of people. They're plugging them into the system. They're not doing 1 or 2 a month. They're just sharing it with a lot of people. But it's so important that you understand this. Truly, guys, it is. And let's just go back here. Just quickly to remind you, 100% of those that do the work make it to the top, right? You want to get this thing cranked up and you go and sponsor 20 as fast as you can. Keep personally sponsoring, help and coach your team, get them plugged into the system. You know what I mean? Work involved, but it's worth it. You can do it. Right? Just supposing you enrolled 5. You got 5. How many people in the room have already enrolled 5? Well, it looks as though that's possible. If you did that, right, you're 3,125. You'd have 3,900 on your team. If everybody's doing 100 BV each month, just 100. How many people do more than 100 BV each month? Okay. You'd have this much stuff going through. Divide that by 900, bring it back to cycles. 434 a month. 23,430 for the month.
For the year.
You'd be 5-star. 281,000, right? So what's 281,000 worth to you? In residual income. Well, on a 5% return, you'd need $5.5 million invested. And if you're working for $50 an hour, for 40 hours a week, for 50 weeks a year, for 56 years, you'd get it. Right?
That's very good, Craig.
That's just how it is. Right? What's your business worth? How many people are already 2 cycles, 2-star and above? Okay, so we've got a lot of that. Right? That's going to be $1,000 a week. How much you need to at 5% return to make $1,000 a week? It's a minimum. At 5% gives you 50,000, right? Those of you, the way I look at it, those of you that already got to that level, you've already built an asset equivalent to having $1 million in real estate.
That's right.
That's how, give yourself a hand, right? That's you. Right. Or you could take the 10 years at $50 an hour, 40 hours a week for the 50 weeks a year to do it. Right, there's only one figure you've got to remember from this whole presentation, and that is it's 100%. The business is 100% predictable. We've got enough people here in this room to prove that. You hear me? They've been out there sharing it, and it's been working. Right, 100% of those who do the work make it to the top. That's why I was prepared to sell my vet practice, give it away, when I was making $300 a month, because I understood these figures. I got no doubt Dean understood this when he bailed out of his chiropractic clinic. True? You knew it was numbers. You could already see, you already had a score on the board. It's like, okay, if we keep going and doing this, this is what's going to happen. We're going to the top. You with me? Lives are being changed totally. Many people are certainly achieving more than they could have ever thought possible. Guys, I want you to understand that each and every one of you, we've got the systems in place. I guarantee you that Isagenix is going to be around for a long, long while to come. You with me? But you can do it. Thank you.